Hello, hello, everybody.
Hey, Kevin.
How's
Hey,
everybody
Sarah.
Hello.
doing?
Kevin, you got a great voice today.
Yeah, that's what people telling me. Well, I completely lost it over the weekend, and it's kind of back. But I have lots of meetings today, so we'll see if that still stays the same after this.
Oh, Kevin's real committed to the podcast, folks. He did this just for you.
Hey, I learn hopefully the same amount that the listeners do. So
Kevin, I'm
I like
worried
doing
about your
this.
health because this is like the 4th or 5th week in a row
This is
you've
the
had
second week,
some health
Sarah. Come
issue.
on, second week.
Yeah, but you had the COVID and then you were
Hey,
sick
you got to
and
power through things. The
I
business
know
doesn't
I'm worried.
sleep.
You gotta take care of yourself, man.
Business doesn't sleep.
Sarah, don't your kids get you sick all the time? This is what happens when you have
They
children.
don't. I think I like am I have a super immunity to it at this point.
That's amazing. Well, let's get started. Okay, so we got Andy here. Me and Sarah had a conversation or a debate, call it what you want, on AI and where it really belongs, and should you be retrofitting your company to AI? Should you be raising on AI? Wanted to bring Andy on. He's probably our a resident expert on all of the hosts that we have in AI to kind of get your sense. And also, a note, Sarah mentioned there was a blog post from NFX, a VC firm, all about how AI can help marketplaces that I did read. So I could bring that to the table as well. But Andy, why don't you kick it off? What do you think? So what is AI and where do you think it's actually valuable? And then also maybe like, who do you think are going to be like the winners as far as like venture companies being created in the space?
Well, let's take the first one. How do I think it's valuable? So, and why am I qualified to talk about this? Well, I've started two venture-backed AI companies at this point. So I've been doing this for 10 years. I've been doing it before we called it AI. It used to be called just machine learning. And that's what I would have called this topic a few years ago. What I'm finding it to be very useful is not building an AI company, but how do you use AI inside of your company to really save or double your output of your labor? I think that's the biggest takeaway, and that's the biggest thing I'm starting to see, and it's a really big thesis of mine in itself. I mean, specifically in SG&A and sales and ops functions, how can you supercharge people a- and get double the amount of hours or labor output? So things like automation. How do you automate the repetitive workflow you do all the time? There are a lot of tools out there. Zapier is one that comes to mind that people can use to just automate the simplistic things you're continually doing, and then
Retools, another one.
retools another one for internal processes. Thank you. And there are definitely a few more of them out there. And so what you can do is you can automate these internal ops processes. And specifically with these LLMs, it's getting better and better in the automation space. So what we're seeing is everything you couldn't do over the last 10 years is now actually possible to do. So what are the functions I'd be looking at if I'm an entrepreneur and I'm trying to start more automation and more using more AI? Well, first and foremost, it's everything in ops. So all those workflows, whether it's the workflows between tools, whether it's forms, whether it's the type of KPIs you're reporting, I think there's a lot of opportunity there. So it's ops, it's engineering. So if you're not using GitHub Copilot or even the data analysis type tooling from ChatGPT, I think that's a big one. And I think even for anyone here, if you haven't played around with some of these data analysis tools, I mean, ChatGPT probably saved me 5 hours last week. What did I do? I uploaded into ChatGPT Enterprise two different CSV files with different user bases, and I said to ChatGPT, who's in one file on one list that's not in the other file? And in 20 seconds later, I had an output. This was thousands of records, and I downloaded it into a CSV and I sent it around my company. And I was able to literally save what would have taken me in Excel, I don't know, 3 hours to build match and index functions. So there are just a lot of ways to increase your productivity. Now, that's not making your company an AI company. That's saving on SG&A. And that's basically supercharging human labor. And that's where,
Can we
go ahead.
can we separate a few? So you're kind of using AI very broadly, which I think everybody is. Like automation is not necessarily AI. So like retool, like they don't have a large language model like that actually backs it up. They are a tool that you can make interfaces and it's all powered. Like I think that where people get this all mixed up is like all of this is like just usually they're just like marketing around like a Postgres like database. Like Retool is a way that you could drag and drop components and you could have SQL queries to update certain things and then empower your ops team to do certain functions and make it super easy so they don't need to know SQL. I think like would you agree with that those definitions?
Yeah, I mean, I think that's really important distinction because like Zapier has been around forever. I mean, we've been using it forever to have
Right.
different tools that don't work together actually work together and to automate processes. I feel like what AI is now capable of is not really what you described with the spreadsheets, but like giving it a spreadsheet and being like, find the errors. Like something that would be more vague and you would trust a human to do it. Now that's the sort of thing you can actually give to ChatGPT or an AI and say like, well, find me any problems or any trends or anything interesting I should know about. Like you can actually not have to have a specific process like you used to use Zapier. It can be more ambiguous because AIs are good at kind of understanding what a human would start to understand.
Well, taking even a step back from that, like there were these tools out there like Retool and Zapier and so many of these other automation tools that were difficult to use. Now you go to their website and the first thing you're landed on is an AI, a natural language
Mm.
interface where you describe what you're trying to do. And it allows you to quickly and easily build that automation. So I think that's even one step higher.
I'm going to push back. I think that's all marketing. I don't think most people use that in the real world. Nobody's going to be like, build me an app that does blah, 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 blah. Like that's not going to happen.
I'm I'll push back on you there because I used it for the first time last week and it was amazing. It saved me an hour of something I never would have
But
attempted
is,
to
is
do.
this, is this prototyping stuff or is this something that you're actually going to build? Like we're talking about like, if you're building a venture backed company, like I totally agree with what you guys are saying. Like it can save you some time. I think that AI can help you in certain tasks. Like I think content writing is one. I think taking a lot of information and extracting something out of it, summarizing things, is like another. But I just don't. I think that most of all of this already existed before. We're going through this like AI hype train right now. And like all this shit, like all the stuff that Retool did, all the stuff that Zapier did, like it's all been done outside of large language models. That's what people is. That's what, when I think of AI, that's what it
It's
is. I think
just
people are just getting confused and people are basically wrapping a thin layer of like, we're an AI company now to try to get more higher valuations and all that when in reality, it's a Postgres database and you have engineers that may have been empowered by Copilot or whatever to write all these different tools. But in the end, it's not like I don't see like I see a few big winners and then just a lot of companies that are just gonna die that are building AI
let's
companies.
divorce like the VC market from what you should actually be using to save time in your company.
Sure.
Yeah.
So I'm talking about what you should actually be using to save time in your company. And there's so many different enablements that LLMs have allowed you to do that makes the tools you're discussing, the retools, the Zapiers of the world, so much easier to use, almost 10 times easier to use. It make what LLMs do, data analysis and chat GPT. It makes it so much easier and saves you so much time to do complex data analysis. What you used to need a BI team, you can now start to do with an end user. What your RevOps team used to spend hours on trying to do analysis, one individual person can do it in a minute. And that's a massive cost saving. So what you're going to start to see is not we're not talking about AI companies, you're going to start to see AI enabled. So you become a
Yeah.
superhuman because you know how to use these tools. That allows you to hire less people and it allows you to run a much more efficient, higher margin company. And that's what I believe you're going to start to see over the next 10 years. And what that enables you to do, and what I personally believe, is you're going to have people who really understand how to use these models. We're not talking about how to build them. They know how to use the practical input. So maybe they're good at prompting, maybe they know where to go, maybe they know which model is better. And those people are going to start succeeding in their job because they're going to be 10 times more productive.
Yeah,
That's as an entrepreneur what I think you should be really focusing on. Ignore the hype train. Ignore the next topic where I know you want to take it, Kevin. It's how you use in your company to increase your margin profile, to increase your productivity.
So how should we be starting to like train our people up on this? Or do you just hire people that are already good at it?
Well, I think I saw one company out there, and I don't want to mention the name. They basically said you have a week to start experimenting with AI products. And what they saw is they saw 50% adoption of AI internally at the end of like a month period. What did that 50% adoption look like? It looked mostly like ChatGPT, and they started offering to pay for ChatGPT Plus, but you saw significant labor enhancements. Now, there are a lot of other tools out there. There's Claude, there's Perplexity, there's a lot of other these models. The simplest way to start is give your people a couple days to play with the tooling, and then start adding it as an interview question. How proficient are you with AI? Especially if you're in some kind of ops function, if you're in some kind of
yeah,
any ops function, any finance function, any type of strategy function, because this is going to save you exorbitant amounts of time. The next question I'd ask, okay, is it okay at your company to do performance reviews using AI? Or is that something, do you want to incentivize that? Or do you want to make it so your people can't do that? I would say you want to incentivize that. Performance reviews are something that it takes your average manager hours. Don't you want them to be able to save time on that while getting the same output? I've heard some companies out there, they don't allow you to do that. I've heard other companies out there where they say if you're not using this, you're at a detriment. And so, which side of the coin do you want to be?
yeah. I think that that definitely makes sense. I think, yeah, that's actually happened organically within our company, and we now pay for the whatever enterprise version of Chat GPT, and people are mostly using it for content creation. I know our engineering team is tried it. I don't think it's really stuck. We've also tried Copilot. I think that I think we use it a little bit, but not like heavy users on it, because it doesn't, it's not 100% right all the time, but it can save you some time, some things. And going back to the NFX blog post that Sarah brought up last time, that they have, what is it, 4 levels, and this is for marketplace specifically, but I think it applies to any companies. Level 1 is AI enhanced, which is really what you're talking about, is that you're going to be using to enhance your marketing, your coding, your whatever, using these different tools. Level 2 is an AI product extension. So you have strong product market fit already, and you're going to, and you don't use any AI tools, and you're going to basically bolt something on. Next level, level 3 is AI enabled, which is basically like you're creating a whole product around AI that's probably brand new outside of your existing product lines. And then the last one is you're an AI company. You're essentially, and they use an example of like for marketplaces, they so say your marketplace is, I don't know if you guys have ever used Fiverr, if you use it to generate some logos or whatever. Now you could use that potentially to like generate those automatically. I think image generation, copy generation, video editing, a lot of these different things, like you are the product. Those are the four, actually, wait, no, that there's a level 5 that's AI first. That's what I'm talking about. I think they have 2 levels that are pretty similar. So those are the different levels. I think the majority of startups are going to obviously be using level 1, maybe level 2. And then I think my prediction is that there's just going to be a few big players in this space. And then there's going to be some very specific, maybe marketplaces, maybe products that are around image generation or copy generation or whatever, that are like these AI first companies that are being built. But I don't think that you should be, unless you have super strong product market fit and you see a natural way that it's going to fit in. This is not like, this is we're also in the hype train now. It's the same thing. You go back to crypto and just see what's happened. Like everybody thinks like the blockchain was going to solve everything. Everybody's adding all this shit. Well, what did the blockchain actually provide? It's just the same shit. This is the
But
same
let's
shit.
wait a second until we get to the hype train. Let's focus on how you can actually tangentially make your company more efficient. Let's focus on that piece of it. Like, how should you use it?
Okay, but
Then let's go to the hype
okay,
train.
let me set you up for that though. I totally agree on that, but I think that the people, our audience, probably most first time founders, your number one goal is to get a product market fit, and so you should be doing like the whole YC, do things that don't scale. Like you should not be going necessarily for these like AI like solutions right away. You should be doing. You should be aiming to get product market fit no matter what you need to do. If you need to do manual processes, and then once you do have product market fit and you're scaling the team up, that's when I think it makes a ton of sense. And as Andy mentioned at the beginning, you can get rid of like these SG&A functions, like reduce like the cost by like half as you look to scale up your company.
Well, I'd push back a little bit. I actually think what's going to happen, what's the doing things that don't scale, a lot of that stuff is going to be much easier to do. So let's think about one big doing things that don't scale: getting customers, getting product feedback, doing that lead outbound, finding people's email addresses. All that's so. Somebody showed me this earlier in the day. It's a tool, Clay.Run. I was a customer of Clay.Run last year. Clay.Run is a lead enrichment service. They give you like what looks like an Airtable. They allow you to look up email addresses, Twitter profiles, all this stuff. And they've now built their AI-enabled workflow tooling. So so going back to doing things that don't scale, would I want to sit there and spend 5 hours doing lead enrichment, finding the people I want to do cold outreach to? Or do I want to sign up for something like Clay.Run?
There's already dozens of companies that are not AI, that are not based on AI, like Zoom Info for
Zoom Info
example.
you
That's
can't
what we
sign up
use.
for without an enterprise subscription. So why I like this tool specifically is you can sign up for it. Secondarily, as a small business, and I'm not an investor, I was an ex-customer to be totally clear with everyone listening to this. What they power is though they now do the email writing. So after you actually find the person's email address, they throw it through an LLM and they do the cold email prompting. And so would I rather spend less time on these type of things? And do I believe this is the future? Yes. I don't believe this is a hype train. I think everyone adding the search bar or co-pilot to their application and saying they're an AI company, that's the definition of the hype train. But I think if you go back
Yeah.
to your framework that NFX talked about, they said level one was AI enhanced. Level two is AI product extension. So a company using AI as an adjacent or complementary product experience. Or level three, AI enabled. So you're embedding an AI experience. Maybe it's easier for in your marketplace to add a search bar that's, instead of using an index search, is now using more of a chat based interface. And like we've gotten to level three as an early product user, as an early stage company without really doing much. Now, I'm not talking about rebranding yourself as an AI company. I'm talking about little things you can do to save time and money.
Yeah, I mean, I do think the result is going to be like getting to product market fit. You would need to raise, a good amount of money in your quote pre-seed or seed round to have the runway to take a few kind of shots on goal. Now you could take 100 shots on goal relatively quickly. I think back to a lot of the things we did in the early days at Winnie to try to figure out what we were even building. Like we did a lot of manual content creation to figure out which content was ranking or interesting. Like that can be done so quickly now and you can try so many different things. So I actually think it's a great tool for finding product market fit. The result is going to be you need a lot less kind of capital and team size to find your thing with product market fit because you have AI to kind of
I agree.
help
I
power
think you're
you.
going to see like unicorn 10-person companies. Now, the last one that comes to mind for me was WhatsApp. Does anyone remember the story there? I mean, they were 19 people when they got acquired for $19 billion.
Yeah.
What happened over the last few years? The company that was worth $1 billion typically had like 500 employees. What do I think the next iteration of this is going to be? It's going to be a company of 100 employees worth $1 billion at the same revenue base with a better margin profile. It's going to enable you to do more
Yeah.
with less. Now, does that make you an AI company? No. that makes you somebody who's good at the practical applications of AI and saving time.
Right.
Yeah.
And that's what I think everyone listening should be focused on doing in their own internal organizations. How do I save time? How do I save money? How do I do more with less? Because look, it's winter in venture land, right?
Yes, it is. And maybe that's actually a good segue to one of our next topics. That was, um, there's a lot of, I don't know if Andy, if you want to kick it off here, there's a
Oh,
tweet
I
that
mean, I
you
saw
brought
this
up.
tweet from one of the a famous product leader out there, and then it's been retweeted by our co-host Siki Chen. So it was originally from Gokul, who's one of the product leaders at DoorDash and pretty famous Silicon Valley angel investor, and it's a lot of associates, principals, junior partners. The young VCs are starting to leave VC, and what kind of skills do they actually have? And so, why are they starting to leave? So, I left VC in 2011. Why did I do it? VC in a bear market is not fun. VC in a bull market is the only time it's fun to work in that job. VC in a bear market is dealing with crises, dealing with fires, helping people raise capital. And so it's the opposite of what everyone thinks venture is. And so you see a lot of people in these bear markets, they want to leave, they want to go become operators, they want to build. And so then the question I think that this evolved into is what skills does somebody have in this role? So everyone wants to find these unicorn chief of staff strategy roles. Newsflash, a 40-person, a 30-person company, a 20-person company doesn't have a strategy team. Very rarely even has a chief of staff. And if it is, it's one role and it's probably filled already. And so the question is, what kind of value can you add? So I'm someone who left venture. I never joined a company. I just went straight into starting a company. But I think there's a lot of
Yeah.
value in a sales skill. Every company needs sales at the
Yeah.
early days.
Yeah.
Every company needs a natural athlete. And when I'm talking about a natural athlete, I'm not talking about the D1 soccer player. I'm talking about somebody who can do anything. No matter how big, how small the task is, figure it out. So I think if you have a combination of sales skills plus a can do mentality and you can just build, so you sit there and think, okay, how is this process wrong and how can I do it correctly? And maybe I'll use some AI tools to fix it. That's the type of person I want to. Kevin is dying from that comment for me. Maybe that's the type of person I want to hire. But I think like the number one skill set you have as a VC, as a young VC is can-do attitude and the ability to cold email and cold call. And that's sales.
You'd make a great SDR, but it doesn't pay as well. I think a lot of
Yeah. That's a good
VC
one.
associates are also getting pushed out. Like it's not necessarily by choice that they're leaving venture, uh, but the firm is just downsizing. They can't afford to employ
So
all
what do you
these
do? What would
associates
your advice
anymore.
be to them, Sarah?
Have you guys had,
I mean, I think like the SDR role probably wouldn't, even though that is like what I think is a perfect match for the skill set. I don't know that that's really what they want to be doing. I agree. Like starting a company, that would be my advice for anyone who can't get a job right now. Like honestly, I think it is a great
do
job that
anything?
is always
Yeah.
available to you. Is start your own business. Like if you're a VC, even if you were just an associate, you have real insight into the fundraising process and real connections that you can leverage. There is still funding at the earliest stages. So that's still available to you. And now with AI, you don't need as much to get started. So I
And
would
that was
I
my
would say start a
superpower. I
company.
used my Rolodex and my knowledge of fundraising to get Nanit off the ground. I mean, that was the first real role that I did as I transitioned from venture to be a founder. So I agree with that. Kevin, what do you think?
Do you, do you think that you're the minority in that? I'll just pose a question to you all. Like, in your experience, have you seen the associates of the VC firms that have invested in you actually provide a lot of value to you as a
So
founder?
I'll take a step back and let me say it like this: Do I believe are there a lot of VC associates who've gone the opposite direction? It typically happens more in bear markets than bull markets. That's number one. From my class of VCs, a lot of us actually went and became operators. And when I say a lot of us, there were probably 30 associates in the venture industry back then. And 6 of us became founders. And most of us are serial founders at this point. A few people went into a lot of people went into corp dev roles. So somebody I know is pretty senior at Carta now, and other roles. But I think there were a bunch of people who left and said, I'm going to go start a company because venture was pretty brutal in 2010 and 2011. It wasn't very fun. Um,
Yeah.
a lot of people started DTC type companies because those were easy to wrap their head around. Head around. Very few became product founders. People did tech enabled services, and there was a few people that have done this very successfully. I don't think people realize that Workday, the co-founder Neil, he was an summer associate at Norwest uh, during his business school days, and then he ended up going to PeopleSoft, and then he ended up starting Workday. So I think there are these outlier
Right.
examples, but everything in venture is an outlier example. I mean, when 90% of companies fail, the outliers are the example.
Yeah, I think my viewpoint would just be to try to join a product that has product market fit and basically try to fit in wherever you could. And it could be just a generalist role if you could get lucky and then just take a massive pay cut and just do whatever you need to do. I think that the thing in startups, like that people don't really realize that haven't really worked for them is that, well, the good founders anyways, and the good management teams, there's unlimited upward mobility. Like
Yeah.
the earliest people that had no experience doing anything that just joined early, because as a startup, you need to look for people that, well, before now, I guess, like call it like 2 or 3 years ago when the talent market was a lot harder, we're trying to find people that they're not going to Google or Facebook. We see something in them that they maybe have an upward mobility. I personally don't care where anybody's went to school or what they have their education in or whatever. I think that that's probably common amongst a lot of startups. And so as long as you get the foot in the door somewhere and you just make like a difference, I think that you will see anybody. This is outside of just VC associates or principals or whatever that are looking for new jobs. I think you would be very surprised the upward mobility that you have. And I encourage, like, I look at for us, like hiring 50% or promoting from 50% within the company. And then as we look to scale and really grow, and when we take on growth rounds, hiring 50% outside, you definitely do need some experience management. But I think that there's still that 50% of people that can go forever. I remember a story of Uber. I think one of their very first, I think of their 11 people, there was a city launcher that worked her way up to, I pretty sure it was an SVP role or something like that, and had no experience. And so the upper mobility in a startup, if you could show real value and you could show that you'll figure stuff out, and things like, yeah, figuring out where you could use AI and then going and teaching other people how they could apply it and doing all those things without anybody asking you. That's what startups really like. Those are the people that I reward with more promotions or whatever they want, and they could climb the ladder infinitely. And I think that's what you get in startups that you don't get in other, especially in venture. In venture, it takes a long time to climb the ladder, and also
Uber was a
in
great
large
place for
companies
the
as well.
XVCs to go. So one of my good friends went there and became the first GM and launched Beijing. Another friend went down to Australia and launched
Yeah.
Australia. Another person we know, he wasn't a VC, but he was a consultant at Bain, launched France in Paris. That was like the perfect place for VC associates or finance people or consultants to go and launch a career in startups. And then most of these people now are their CEOs or multi-time CEOs at this point because it gave
Yeah.
I would also look for like a startup that's actually growing and expanding. Like the
Yes.
kind of upward
Yes.
mobility only works
Yes.
if it's Uber and they have all these GM roles available where you can be the little mini CEO. But I think if the startup, if it's a company and product you believe in, I mean, that was my path at Twitter. I just took the job that was available. It was not a sexy job at the time. I was just like, I want to work for Twitter. I love the product. This was in 2010. I will do
Okay.
anything to work there. I don't care what my title is. I don't care even how much you pay me. I said I wanted, more equity, less selling, which was
Smart.
smart in retrospect. And like, then I was able to just transition to a bunch of roles internally once I was there. And it's both joining a startup where you'll have that opportunity, but then also joining a growing
Well,
company
Sarah,
where
what
more
was that
roles will
first job
become
you took?
available.
Yeah.
It was the product manager for internal tools, which was actually like a really fun job because the tools were, you'd build these tools that were used by people in the company. So you made a lot of people happy. It was a great way to make friends internally. The stakes were pretty low. Like you have an outage, it's fine. It was, my first real product management role, which then led to, real product management on the product used
You're
by millions of
technical,
people.
Sarah, right?
Yeah, that's a great example.
Sort of. Like I studied computer science in college, but I never worked as an engineer, which is like, I think my one biggest regret. If I could go back in time, I wish
Oh,
I had
interesting.
done software engineering. I think I would just have more cred now. But I didn't really believe in myself at the time and think I
So what do
was
you
smart enough.
Really? You went to MIT, you got a 4.0, right?
what is this
5.0 because
5.0?
Oh, sorry.
they did it out of 5, but 4.0 at MIT is not very good. Yeah. Um, yeah, but I think that was the problem. Like everyone around me was genius level, like actual certified genius level IQ. And so you feel really, you think you're really dumb compared to all these people.
And that set you back from not actually going and pursuing a
And
career in
also,
software?
most of the courses I had taken in college were like theoretical computer science. So it was a lot of math. I
Got it.
loved math.
Got
And
it.
so I could write these like complex proofs, but I couldn't actually like code, which is what was required in the
Got
job.
it. Got it.
So it wasn't a very practical
What's it like being in the
education.
real world where you're on a
Got
podcast
it.
and you actually are the smartest person by far?
I think,
Exactly,
yeah,
yeah.
you really like underestimate like how dumb most people are in real life. But I have also gotten a lot dumber with age,
Kevin,
so
she's
it's all
talking to you,
been,
not me.
kind of evened out. My brain it. Yeah.
Yeah, yeah, of course. Of
It's like,
course.
I mean, just look at the people on Twitter. It's like 99% of people are just really effing dumb.
Yeah. This is true. This is true. I had another topic. Um, I was thinking about this. I don't know. I think I saw it. It was a tweet from Ahmad from Mercury. We've had him on the show. He's a friend of mine, and he was talking about. So he's been starting companies now. This is his, and also actually Apoorva from Instacart. I think that he started like 20 companies before he started Instacart.
What?
Ahmad now, yeah. They were like small things, but Ahmad now is the CEO and founder of Mercury. They're I guess a bank for startups mostly. He's actually been founding companies for the last 16 years. So I thought it'd be interesting to pose a question to all of us, and I was just thinking about this too. What would you tell yourself starting out when you first started companies with all the information you know now? And I think would be like a really interesting
Did you
thing
see
for
the
our
interview
audience
with the founder
specifically.
of NVIDIA? What he said when asked this question? What was his answer, Kevin, for anyone who hasn't
Yeah, I
seen that?
did. Yeah. You want to, he said, don't start a startup. He wouldn't have started NVIDIA because it was so much harder than he had thought that it was, that if he were to go back and tell the person, he'd be like, don't do it. It's too much hard work. It's just going to be way harder. But I think he turned it around to be like, um, I can't remember exactly how he ended that clip on, but I think it was something around, but you get used to it basically. It's just like, it gets harder and harder and harder, but like your tolerance for pain gets higher and higher and higher. So like it's like you're in a pot of boiling water that starts when it's really cold, right? And you just kind of get used to it. Um, but if you were to go to the very hottest, it would be like just unbearable pain. So I think like, yeah, that was a funny anecdote. But do you guys have
I
anything
think
that
it's
you want to start with that
I think
question?
it's
What would you tell yourself starting off? And
I think if I
a
knew
decade
how
ago or
resilient I'd
more than a
have to
decade
be,
ago.
it's a very similar answer. I may have not have done it. Now I'm probably addicted to it. Um, but I think at the end of the day, you have to my superpower when I tell people is walking on glass, literally. And I think that's what you have to do. So in 2021, anyone could basically anyone could start a company with a PowerPoint presentation and get some money. And you could hire a bunch of team, you could build a pretty website, maybe you could build a product, and, and you could still raise more money. And now it's your metrics are up and to the right, and you're probably still struggling. It's the hardest time since 2001 to run a venture-backed company. It's probably harder than 2008. And I think every entrepreneur, whether they're admitting it privately or publicly, is going through a lot. And now it's when resilience comes through. This is 2002 for Amazon. This is before AWS has been invented. And if you have a friend who's an entrepreneur, you should probably go out and hug them. Um, so I think really my superpower and what I wish I had known is the resilience and how difficult it would be. But it's exactly the quote you just described. I've gotten to this place where nothing really bothers me. You shrug it off, you go home, and the next day you come up with a plan to survive. I think this happens a lot during a journey. And so, Sarah, I'd love to hear your answer about this, but that's mine.
I mean, I wish I'd spent less money, kept the team smaller for longer till I found product market fit. We didn't have product market fit for a while. We burned too much cash to get to product market fit, and then everything is kind of downstream of that. Like you get more diluted, you have, uh, higher valuation you have to hit. So I just really wish we had kept the team really, really small for much, much longer, uh, and just not spent as much until we had
I
really
think a lot
found
of
that,
founders would
like,
say that
escape
today.
velocity.
Now, my question back to you is, do you know anyone who actually says they did it correctly? Because I think your answer is so common.
Well, there was just, like, some AI company that reached a billion-dollar valuation within 6 months, so they probably did it right. Probably did something. Um, yeah, I think it's just, like, we built way too much. We, like,
Right.
didn't need to we could have prototyped a lot more, didn't have to be all production ready with a huge engineering team for a huge cost until we had really found that product market fit. And, the other thing would be, like, build less, sell more. I didn't do sales until, like, a couple years ago. Like, I just thought, like, build the product, and I was a product person, and really, like, day 1, I should have been out there doing sales. Like, that should have been my job from the beginning, not building the product or building the team even. It should have just
Yeah,
been
I think that's
talking to
amazing.
customers.
That's just really good insight. I think the number one role of a CEO is to sell. And if you come from an engineering background, you come from a product background, you have to learn it. That's your first job. You have
Yep.
to keep the lights on. You have to speak to customers. You have to get product feedback and design partners, product feedback, whatever you
Boys.
want to call it. You have to get in front of people at those early days. And how do you do that? And if you build it, they will come almost never works. There are the outliers.
No.
And there are these companies that put up a website and all of a sudden have a million signups, but there are they're almost one in a million.
Yeah. Yeah.
So
I mean, I think part of it was working at these big tech companies where we just would launch a feature and millions of people would use it. And like, that's just not reality for a startup. And it sort of trained me wrong. I had to unlearn all of that and realize like my job is sales and marketing. And that's like all the other jobs can go to other people, but that's the one
Yeah.
skill I need to be really, really good at.
so yeah, I agree with everything you're saying. I think that number one job from day one of founding a company is trying to find product market fit as quickly as you possibly can and with as small as a team as you possibly can. Sometimes it's not possible to find it with 3 or 5 people, obviously. Like if you're, especially today, you're competing against a lot of like fully featured products, right? Your product is going to have to be that, if you're solving a similar problem, be this at least the same as them. Plus it's going to have to do a lot more. So you're, it's definitely a lot more competitive. And that's why I don't typically love the lean startup. Like, when all that stuff came about, like that was, I think that that was in a time where there wasn't as many competitors, but I think that it's just, I completely agree with like spend less and just focus on product market fit and then expand, and then go from there. My answer is a little different. And I was thinking about this and I think about, and this is personally for me. And it's more or less like treating like being a founder CEO as like a career over multiple decades and multiple companies potentially. Like the average age for I think a $1 billion a company, the founding age is, I think it was 45 actually. So there's a lot of press with people that are in their 20s and or whatever now, and YC, a lot of younger people, and they're getting funding and all that. But the actual like the numbers are like 45 is like when you could it just takes a long time to learn a lot of things. I definitely would have came out to now, well, whatever wherever the hub is. So today I would have probably moved to San Francisco. I would have been an engineer. I would have went into some AI company. I would have joined probably a Series B company, trying Series A or Series B company, and just take the lowest level role I possibly can do, and just kind of learn as much as I possibly could from the actual founders. Try to get there, build a network of both investors and also people that I would want to start a company with. Probably do that for like maybe 4 years, still in your early 20s, and then go and start founding companies and really think of it as like a lifelong pursuit. Like I really hope and believe that what we're working on right now at Airhouse it is going to be $1 billion company, but also zooming out, it may not be. And it could not be the right, maybe it's not the right timing, or maybe it's because the venture markets aren't working, or whatever, something may come up that doesn't enable us to do that. I still believe that it can, but looking at like, okay, I'm going to do something else. And then I'm going to take all my learnings and then keep on recycling all the learnings that you have. So like what Sarah just said, like that's a learning that you can try to learn, like hopefully people listening to this podcast, like this is why we're doing it, try to skip maybe some decades for people and telling our learnings, but learn from other people, learn from people that are doing it, and then learn yourself. And you're going to fail. The likelihood, like everything that's going on in like the press as far as the 6-month-old company that got to the $1 billion valuation, that's just headlines. That's not reality. It takes so much grinding, so much grit, determination, like failure to actually like to create those opportunities for you. And you just got to keep at it. And that's what
Yeah,
I would
and
tell myself.
counterexample to the AI company that was worth $1 billion in 6 months, there's just news that this company, Olive AI, a healthcare AI company, which was valued at $4 billion and raised $900 million, has just shut down, like sold off for pieces and basically no money. So $900 million basically just lit on fire, flushed down the toilet. So I think this was totally right that like you have to think about AI as actually helping your company, not about the valuation stuff. And
Yes.
that's not real. That's just optics. And these businesses can vanish. The real stuff is like, how do you harness the power of AI and not get distracted by all this noise out there?
And the only reason I would say that I would go like today, if I was restarting my career going to AI, is because that's where there is a lot of innovation going on. And I think that there's going to be a lot of like, there are going to be winners in AI. And when I say like the hype cycle, that doesn't mean that there's not going to be like, I'm like jaded to be like, oh, there's not going to be any companies of real value. I'd say crypto, there's actually a lot fewer than other hype cycles, but like AI is going to produce some really like generational shifting companies. It's probably going to be in like less than 10 companies though, like realistically. And so that's why I would not start an AI company unless I had a unique insight, unless I was in AI for the last decade, or all of a sudden I've been building an AI company and now there's time to um, really take advantage of those valuations and everything. But like the hype cycle is because venture is all about like the investors try to get that one company that's going to blow up, and they will take 10 to 20 bets in the same sector because they just need, they could only lose one times their money, but they could 1,000x their money on one of them. And that is the opposite for like, if you put like, you're a founder, you're putting all your eggs in one basket. And so the likelihood that you're going to be successful against all of these other competitors, if you don't have a unique insight or something like that, that's why I would just stay away from AI, like building an actual AI company. But obviously using it in your day-to-day work, it makes a lot of sense. And also there's going to be some really cool stuff around, like if I was an engineer, I'm sure like the stuff that you would learn there could last a lifetime. And I think that definitely would be the place that I would start now. But like 10 years ago, I would have, or actually, if I was in my early 20s, it would have been just like join what's a 20-year-old company, join Amazon or something like that, and just like I don't know what their code stack is, but it's probably like Java or something like that. I don't know. And just do whatever
I mean, if we
you
were
had
talking
and
about
climb up
this in
the company
2010,
ladder
we
and all
would have
those
still
types of
been
things.
talking about this transition. We would have been starting to talk about this transition to the cloud. We would have been starting to talk about what SaaS is. I mean, like you have
Yes.
to go back in time because everything now is delivered via a web browser. But like 2010, most software was still on-prem. So I mean, they were sold in a box in a data center, and that's where we are in AI. It's a natural transition to the next infrastructure and the next enabling tooling that we're going to use over the next 10 years. So it's sort of like you need to know how to use these products. If you don't know how to use the last generation of this, you don't know how to use a cell phone, if you don't know how to use the last platform shift,
Yeah.
you're kind of left behind. And this specifically is going to make it so much easier to improve efficiency. Think about all the people who spent all that time learning how to use SQL. Uh, now that's a worthless skill. Basically, you have natural language.
Oh my
Yeah,
God, get out of
SQL.
here.
Learning how to use SQL is
It's
a
a
worthless
worthless
skill.
skill?
I mean, like
That is an
OpenAI,
over
ChatGPT can do it
exaggeration.
for
I
you.
mean,
Pretty.
well, it doesn't know our database structure. I'm actually struggling with the SQL stuff. Like we do a ton of SQL queries and like very complex ones, and I can't really get ChatGPT to help me because it doesn't. There's like 10 different tables, and sometimes we just don't have the data, so we have to like file a ticket with engineering to bring it in.
I mean,
It's
you're
not
describing field
it's
math
not there yet.
realistically, and I
Hopefully, it
mean
will get
that
there.
is the
But
problem that needs to be solved. How do you actually get to a place where that exactly your database or your data warehouse, your data lake? How do you actually map those tables to what an AI model will be able to solve? And once we get there, then this problem is completely solved. It's really interesting.
yeah,
So I completely disagree with Andy what you said. Learning SQL is a worthless skill because I think this is also why VCs like to found technical founders, even if they like myself. Like my first half of my career, I was an engineer, software engineer, and uh, the knowing how to build something and then running a company. So like understanding the fundamentals of like how a database works and like how AWS works and how like serverless architecture works and all of these different things, then you have a leg up when you are going and like building a team. And even if you're not actually implementing any of the stuff, you knowing how it works. So if you're going to use AI and you think your AI is going to be able to replace all the SQL stuff, it essentially, like, you understanding the basics of that or the basics of programming will set you up to actually understand all of this stuff in a way. And also then speak the language of the, like, especially early days, your actual product and engineering team. I think that is why a lot of VCs go and they like the technical founder that also is a salesperson, that's also good fundraiser and can hire people and all of that. I think that's why it's important. Not that like I could see where you're going. Like eventually you will not need to write SQL. I could see that, and it's going to empower AI will empower people not to once it's mapped properly and all that stuff.
Well,
But I
I'm
think
not saying it as a
understanding the
founder. I'm
underlying
just saying in
concepts
general. I
is
mean, like
actually
all the
really
biz
important.
ops teams where people had to learn SQL to query user data. That's going to be 10 times easier in 2 years.
Yeah, but true. But also, I would say that there's lots of companies out there, like a Looker, for instance, right? Like you have, like you do need to have. I know they have a
SQL,
proprietary
basically.
like SQL. They have a LookML language. It's just this guy. I don't like it, but yeah, it's basically SQL, but it's a different version, and it enables you as an operations person or whatever to go and query certain things without having to know SQL. So there already are services like that. Is AI going to make it easier to do that? Yeah, maybe they can make it so you don't need to have that person that translates everything or maps all those different fields to everything. But I think that we're still pretty far away, and we are in the hype cycle. And typically, what happens in the hype cycle, there are some companies that kind of rocket ship out, but then more of the innovation happens like 5 years later. And then it kind of, so I
I
think
think
that, yeah,
SQL
in 10
itself,
years, you
because it's
probably
actually
won't
well
need
defined,
to know SQL as
is going
much.
to be much faster than that. But we can leave that for another day because we're basically at time. But that one is one of the ones.
Yeah, we are at time.
Equal. Love it.
SQL. Yeah, study your SQL, everybody. But yeah, let's end it on that. Everybody, thanks for listening.
Thank
And
you.
ask if anybody can review our podcasts. We're on Apple, we're on Spotify, we're on YouTube. Leave a comment, like, help us out, get more distribution on this, and maybe
Awesome.
we'll be able to get
Thanks,
some
everyone.
cool guests on here.
Thanks.
Thanks, everybody. See you guys.
See you later.
Bye.